welcome to the stage, Brenda.
Thank you. It is completely wonderful to be here. My family is out. I'm not sure I would recommend picturing on your birthday when you're meeting everybody and having dinner,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brenda. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. You're all beautiful and wonderful, and I love every single one of you.
And you are here to all of us.
Okay, so I'm going to do a piece from Tidal Fury that's based on a native myth, the Timsian. I had this story in a book called Keepers of the Earth, and I read it to my children in the 90s, and when I was writing this book, Tidal Fury, it just kind of popped out. It's my retelling. I hope it's okay. I definitely cite my sources. You can look up the story on the net. It's all over. And then I'm going to do 2 Medusa pieces, and many of you will have seen me perform in that. I'm doing 2 dance pieces. And if I have time, I'll just end with some short pieces on writing. So this piece is called Tidal Patterns. Maybe I'll be taking it out and putting it back on, whatever. Once the tide remained high. Without clams or seaweed, the Timsian went hungry. Raven knew what lay under the blue, glistening robes of water. When he wrapped his blanket of black feathers around his strong shoulders, he flew. Scanning the edges of the ocean, he found her. Tightly, she held the tide line in her hands. She would not release the ocean to rhythmically rise and fall or draw back from the beach, leaving washed treasures, clams, seaweed, shells, shiny pebbles. Why did the old woman hold the tide line so tightly in her lined, papery hands? Lodged on the edge of the ocean, she gripped the waters in the lifelines on her palms. Who can tell from the mass of mounds and lines in her hands how she bid the great waters be still? Inside her sun-bleached house, with closed eyes, she imagined the ocean or saw it with visionary sight. She sat, the tide line, her hands, the one interconnected with the other, like a fisherman's net, weeping tears of salt. Raven dropped down, a shadow of black feathers. He sat beside her and groaned, holding his belly, saying he had eaten too many clams. He broke her meditation. She stood and went to look at the clams, but he pushed her and she fell. Then he poured sand in her eyes until she was blinded. Pulling the tide line, ripping the lifeline from her, he released the waters so the tide at last fell. Crazy old woman on the edge of time, time's burden, that weight of life-giving water. The ocean drew back its blue mantle of robes, and the people feasted. There were bonfires on the beaches, a festival of clam bakes that lasted days until everyone's bellies were swollen with food. Who was the old woman, the blind old woman on the beach crying with the torn hands? Raven, in raucous joviality, passed from one feasting party to the next until he found himself before the old woman who spoke. Raven, heal my eyes so I may see again. Raven, trickster figure, Promethean fire stealer, knew the gods must be bargained with, appeased, so he struck a deal. Old woman of the sea, I will heal you, but you must promise to let the tide line go twice a day so the people may gather food from the beaches. She agreed, and so he rinsed the sand out of her eyes. Thus Raven ensured the lifelines of the people, their continuity. I walk the desolate beach, strewn with empty clamshells. I want to find her, to find out why the withholding. But I spin like Tiresias under an unrelenting sun. Why are black feathers strewn in my hair? My eyes are gritty and sore. I see flaring volcanoes, a red rage of light. On this windless day, how did my eyes fill with sand? My hands bleed as I write. For what do I cry? Thanks. Now, two Medusa poems. Many of you have already seen these a few times. This is my Medusa wig after trying to figure out for a year how I would do one. I went to Fabricland and I got some ribbon. Yeah. Well, Medusa's in Fabricland too. The Medusa. Can you know the depths of the anguish, monsieur? Deep in the grammar of the self where it unravels, defies coherency, laws of linguistic construction, being forced to look with unblinking gaze. Fear of catatonia, this self-portrait. A work is at once order and its ruin, and these weep for one another. My head unwraps in the mirror like a ribbon or writhing snake. This writing, is it risk-taking? Am I subverting myself in this emotional storm of words? Apollo rising, full of pride, held out the head of the Medusa to this grotesquely uncouth Dionysian power. Nietzsche sees the Medusa as a figure of death between them, says Derrida. She who turns life into art with her gaze. Flesh becomes stone, pigment, pixel, celluloid. The immortalizer who kills us. I weep on an altar of rainbow serpents, on shed skin, the coils in my jewel-studded hair cut a mass of deathly serpent eyes. On the beach, polished pebbles, smooth glass baubles, tangled fishing wire, waterlogged boots, shells chipped, mollusks and sea urchins, dead cadavers, detritus swollen along the glimmering band of sand. I see her on sea walks. She gazes out to sea, grief on her face, wet from the spray of the rocks that she stands on, and something indefinable, lit from within, like sunset spilling out of her eyes. But the coast is empty. I don't know who I am. Me, her, you, or a transfigured god, a Medusa lady, the curls in my hair coiling in the sea spray, an image maker. Blue dancers leap and fall, disappearing bubbles of sea foam. You are the edge of the waves that tip over when the peak cannot hold itself aloft and falls like a dancer letting go of taut tension and plunging. Or perhaps it is words that fall into froth. We stand on the shore of oceans that encompass the earth. Let me bathe in your words, salt rinsing raw passion, our vision infinite as the skyline. Am I in love with you? And who, my unbidden holy muse? Thank you. So there's two dance poems. They both use sarongs. They're from different parts in the book. This actually happened at an authentic movement class, but it wasn't everybody, it was just me. I went down to Queen Street and I found some fabric and I took it home and I dyed it with permanent ink and I sewed it. It kind of works. So, this is called Dance of the Sarong. Wrapping raw silk around my shoulders, torso, breasts, and head. I dance like a slave seeking a freedom that is terrifying. With nothing to constrain you, fetter, contain, weigh, what would you do? Who would you be? If we could ignore being watched, read, observed, judged about the unceasing gaze of the other, what would we do, produce, be? How do we keep each other in check, clipped, chained, trapped? We push elbows against the tight cloth and turn and fall and gyrate our self-imposed prisons in shades of blue. The sarong echoes the burqa dress code in societies that contain the energies of women. Images shape our dance. Ancient Egyptian mummies, torture victims, Michelangelo's slaves, enslavements from without, and the way we enslave ourselves within. I dance a life's struggles. Twirling, fighting for release along the wall. Private anguish is visible. We are wrapped in an invisibility that gives us the freedom to fight for inner freedom. When the dance is over, we peel off the sarongs like ribbons of skin and sit in a circle, wondering if any of us is closer to who we are. Continuing. This one's called Chthonic. And Nancy Bullis, who is one of the features at my next Poetry and Music Salon at the end of this month, I was on her show for an interview, and this was the poem she picked out of the whole book. She wanted me to read, so I guess she liked it. Soft cotton sarong in wide swaths of orange, plum, cream, and simmering moons, becomes a snake with many eyes. I know by the way it winds around my neck while I sway on the dance floor. Serpents of a hallucination, serpents of protection. Do I hallucinate? Gold snakes pour over my swaying arms, wrap around my curving belly while I shimmy and gyrate to the sensuous rhythms of flute and sitar. I am possessed. The writhing waterfall of coppery snakes stream. I hold earth lightning in my hands like the Minoan snake goddess. I can't stop dancing. Oh, that's true. The Lady of Serpents. Everywhere they slither and coil. As an energy of creativity that persists despite inner dissensions, the envy of the other. The face of envy on the dance floor is a mass of dry, dead hair. A rigid torso without sensuality or warmth. The cruelty exposed. Its breath re-inhaled the fumes, powerless to prevent, incapable of damaging, useless flap of useless motion, rendered impotent, powerless. Today, the dictator died. The despot is deposed. The cries and laughter of freedom rise to the sky. And I wrote that the day Pinochet died, who was the dictator of Chile from 1972 to 1990, and many, many thousands were murdered, interned, tortured, and disappeared. And I wrote that the day he died. Okay, two very short pieces. Writing Inscribe, the soft slip of flesh inscribed in stone under the writer's hand, and Insomnia, When I obsessed about writing the way I do a lover, I stopped sleeping. I keep a notebook beside me, its white sheets, to write blindly in the night with a pencil without seeing. Words flow from the imaginal to the real, shaping. All day, euphoric, such nights of intense lovemaking. Thank you.
Wow. Wonderful. Round of applause. That was wonderful. Oh my goodness. Thank you for breathing new life really into poetry. I think that's amazing.